Today's video is sponsored by Morning Brew. Morning Brew is a totally free daily newsletter, and just like a rich cup of coffee, it's something that you don't want to start your day without. It's a quick, well-organized look at both light and heavy news that you can receive every day, Monday through Saturday, and I'm telling you, it's really rather good. Who has the time to sit down and watch the news every morning? Who has the stamina to slog through a dry, crusty news section in your local newspaper every single day? Who trusts that Twitter is going to vomit up the topics that you definitely need to know about? Well, Morning Brew tells me what I need to know, along with some really cool or interesting tidbits that I can keep in my back pocket. So, for instance, earlier today I was reading my most recent copy. I'm recording this advert in early November, and it has all these good bite-sized bits of information on the recent US elections or an update on some recent inflation data. But it's always useful information, packaged in very plain language that's easy to understand and quick to read through. So yeah, it's a great mix of quick blurbs that you should know, plus short profiles on meatier news items that you'll want to keep up with. In short, if you like finance, current events, or tech, or even if you just want to keep up with some basic headlines, there's absolutely no reason not to subscribe to Morning Brew because, like I said, it's totally free and it takes all of 10 seconds to sign up. So click on the link in the description below and you can plug into a nice news drip. And now, today's video. Derived from Greek, utopia means no place, as in a place that couldn't exist. But so desperate have humans been throughout history that even impossible dreams are believed. Hence, most of the following mad visions were thought to be real in their day, or at least within our reach. Number 10. The Peach Blossom Spring. At least 8 tourist traps in China claim to be the Peach Blossom Spring, but in truth or myth, only one man appears to have been there. Exploring an uncharted river through a forest of peach trees, a fisherman found a hole in a mountain. Since it was emanating daylight, he tied up his boat and squeezed through. On the other side was an open, fertile land of bamboo groves and mulberry trees with clear, shimmering pools. The people, farmers, were all strangely blonde and dressed in old-fashioned clothes, even by 4th century standards. Although surprised to see the fisherman, they were urgently curious too. Plying him with chicken and wine, they asked him about the world outside their own. Their ancestors, he learned, had taken refuge in this land from the sweeping reforms of the Qin, 5 centuries or so earlier. They had been without contact ever since. But as the fishermen answered their questions, they realized they had missed out. China sounded worse off than ever. Eventually, he left the Peach Blossom Spring, leaving markers along the way. Arriving home, he shared his tale and arranged for a proper expedition. But just as the natives had warned him, he never found his way back there. Number 9. Atarakuru. Mentioned in Sanskrit and Pali texts as early as 1000 BC, Atarakuru is entirely free of corruption. There's no agriculture, no conflict, no harm to the creatures that live here. Furthermore, the year-round temperature climate ensures that the trees always have fruit, flowers, and somehow even milk. The inhabitants live for thousands of years and while away their time playing music. Men and women are equal in freedom and there aren't any rulers to speak of. According to the Mahabharata, Atarakuru is a land of the celestials, angels descended from heaven. In fact, mortals can't even get through the gates. But if they somehow did get in, their corrupt mortal eyes would see nothing. Number 8. Hyperbaria. Hyperbaria means beyond the north wind. However, it refers not to a dark and frosty polar region, but to a land of eternal spring. This is because Hyperbaria lays behind Boreas, god of the north wind and winter, as he blows his cold gusts south. It's also beyond the reach of Nyx, the goddess of the night, so the sun here is always shining. Above all, Hyperbaria is a land of peace. Nestled between the Riparian Mountains and the river Oceanus, there's very little chance of invasion, something many ancient Greeks must have longed for. Disease is also unheard of. Hyperboreans are strong, their kings 10 feet tall, are descendants of Boreas and the snow nymph Chione. And if, not when, Hyperboreans age, they transform into swans on a lake. Number 7. Lotusland. The islands of the Lotus Eaters, or Lotusland in Tennyson's poem, was among the first stops that Odysseus made. Driven there by a 9-day storm, his ships needed food and fresh water. But what he found there was far more enticing. Arriving on the beach, he sent 3 men to scout out the natives. But when they failed to return, Odysseus led a party himself. He expected a fight, but as it turned out, the scouts hadn't been attacked, they'd been welcomed and fed by the natives. The food was just a little too good. Like opium, the fruit of the island's lotus trees, not to be confused with the flower, a different plant, was so rapturously narcotic that the men lost interest in home. Most weary seemed the sea weary the ore, mused Tennyson. They longed only to stay on the island with its dreamy, smoke-like streams and lotus dust borne on the breeze. Although merely a blissful delusion, Lotusland was real for the dreamers. In the end, Odysseus dragged his men back onto the ships and put out to sea once again. Number 6. The Big Rock Candy Mountains. In the Big Rock Candy Mountains, there's a land that's fair and bright, where the handouts grow on bushes and you sleep out every night. Harry McClintock, 1928. There's never any winds or rain, the trees are full of fruit, the birds are always singing, and you never change your socks. It is, in other words, a paradise for hobos, utopia as imagined by tramps, a land of cigarette trees, alcohol springs, a lake of stew and of whiskey too. You can paddle around them in a big canoe and hens laying soft-boiled eggs. Although there's apparently a police force here, the cops are figures of fun. Cursed with wooden legs, blindness, and rubber-toothed bulldogs, they pose no threat to the hobos. In any case, the jails are made of tin, so you can just walk right out again as soon as you are in. There's actually a dystopian counterpart to the Big Rock Candy Mountains, the all-go-hungry hash house, where the bread's too tough to cut with a sword, the donuts are made of wood, and the sausages bark when touched. But the ballad on which McClintock based his was dark enough on its own. In the original ditty, the Big Rock Candy Mountains were a tall tale to lure kids for abuse. Number 5. The Moon. In Cyrano de Bergerac's L'Autre Monde, published posthumously in 1657, the eponymous narrator flies to the moon by a rocket-powered flying machine. The inhabitants, he finds, enjoy all the usual utopian tropes: eternal spring, peace, love, and immortality, or in this case, aging backwards. They also have rifles that not only kill, but cook whatever you shoot. Moon's speech is basically wordless. The lower class talk by moving their bodies, while the upper class use musical tones either by mouth or, when they disdain to prostitute their throats to that orifice, by some kind of musical instrument. This would have been familiar to readers of Francis Godwin's earlier The Man in the Moon, also published posthumously in 1638, whose protagonist Cyrano even meets, perhaps the first ever sci-fi crossover. However, in Godwin's tale, the moon seems far less utopian, at least for all but the rich. Not only do the commoners live shorter lives, they're also cruelly exploited. Peace is maintained artificially. Rebellious children are simply swapped with better-behaved children from Earth. We also learn from The Man in the Moon that the seas are in fact islands. The whiter, more reflective parts are the ocean. Also, the inhabitants, a tall nocturnal Christian people, are of a hue found nowhere on Earth, the result of living by earthlight. Number 4. Armeria. In feminist utopian visions, men are put back in their place. Pison's Cid Dom is ruled by the Virgin Mary, Gilman's Herland by pathogenic women, and Corbett's New Amazonia by 25th century bioengineered superwomen. But there is an alternative: to get rid of gender entirely. This was the thinking behind Victorian transgender lawyer Irene Clyde's post-gender paradise, Armeria. At first glance, Armeria isn't too crazy. It actually looks pretty good. There are no gendered pronouns, names, or roles. Husband/wife, etc. Married couples, conjugates are equal, everyone lives in a palace, and nobody eats any animals, as they haven't for 1,000 years. They do, however, keep slaves, whose only right to self-determination is the right to apply to change household. This utopian vision also falls down when it comes to the question of children. Since Armerian couples can't have their own, they buy them from a tribe of barbarians. In other words, in terms of exploitation, Armeria wasn't exactly worlds apart from the Empire back in Clyde's day. It was just a more gender-neutral one. Number 3. Islands of the Sun. Another ancient Greek utopia, the Islands of the Sun are an archipelago of 7 circular landmasses, each 5,000 stades, that's 1,000 kilometers in circumference. They're somewhere on the equator, south of Ethiopia. The natives are a scholarly sort, engaged in every field of study, but mainly astrology. The 7 islands actually correspond to the 5 planets of classical astrology, along with the sun and the moon. Their alphabet likewise has only 7 characters, but each has 4 different sounds, and thanks to a doubled tongue, they can speak any language on Earth, including those of birds. They can also hold 2 conversations at once, speaking separately with each of their tongues. They're actually born with a forked tongue, but they split it right down to the root. Strong climate gentle, these 6-foot-plus islanders have bones that can flex, and aside from the head, they are hairless. Disease is rare, and decrepitude is unheard of. At the age of 150, they voluntarily commit suicide by laying on a plant that lulls them to sleep and kills them. If they do get injured in the course of their life, though, there's an animal on the island that can help, similar to a tortoise but with numerous feet and 2 intersecting yellow lines on its back, as well as 4 eyes and 4 mouths, one of each at the ends of each line. Its blood is like glue for severed limbs. Number 2. Cocaine. The islands of Cocaine was dreamt up by serfs. By the end of the Middle Ages, it was known throughout Europe, if not by its French name then, but by the German Schläfenland, or Sluggard's Lands, the Dutch Luliker Lands, maybe Lazy Luscious Lands, or the English Lubberland. Understandably, for medieval peasants whose labourers filled the bellies of lords, free food was Cocaine's main appeal. The streets are paved with pastry, horses constructed with cake, roast hogs loiter with knives in their backs, and roast geese fly into the mouth, all amid rivers of wine. Aside from food, Cocainians are blessed with eternal youth and beauty, free love, and a carefree, peaceful existence. In fact, idleness here is a virtue. The longer you sleep, the more you get paid, but good luck spending your money. The shops in Cocaine are all free. Number 1. Harmonised Earth. French utopianist Charles Fourier was influential beyond his own time. In fact, his is the only mad vision on this list to have actually been tried out, albeit on a very small scale. In a nutshell, he believed our capitalist civilization had isolated Earth from the cosmos. The aurora borealis, he claimed, was a sign of our dying planet's sickness. While other celestial bodies, the stars and planets, were blissfully copulating, erotically attracted to each other's aromal rays, ours was in a state of disharmony. At the heart of Fourier's program for humanity was a realignment with this attractive force. At a personal level, this meant harmonizing with all our own natural instincts, from work to sex and marriage. Instead of laboring away at a job we hate, we'd cycle through many we love. He suggested 30 different tasks every day minimum. To facilitate this, we'd all be rehoused in phalansteries, vast communes set on sprawling, purpose-built country estates, each holding 1,620. Why this number? Well, that's because Fourier believed there were 810 personality types and wanted one of each sex in each phalanstery. Every citizen's attractive labor would serve their own natural urges as well as the phalanstery as a whole. Sexuality would also be unleashed, not least by abolishing monogamy. Once humankind had harmonized in this way, Earth would swiftly follow suit, its own attractive force or aromal rays shooting out to make love to the stars. But that's not all. Nature itself would be altered. Aggressive creatures like lions and sharks would soon die out to be replaced by their gentler opposites, anti-lions and anti-sharks. Meanwhile, the mingling of boreal citric acid from the poles with our planet's oceans would render seawater drinkable. It would, Fourier suggested, taste like lemonade. So I really hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you for watching.